Greetings and welcome to Flanigan's EcoLogic. I'm your host, Ted Flanigan, and today I'm speaking with Stephan Crawford. He is the founder and the executive producer of ClimatMusic, a nonprofit organization using music to educate and motivate people about climate change and how to take action. I'm delighted to have Stephan on the podcast today. Stephan, welcome to the podcast. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you, Ted. I really appreciate the invitation.
Happy to have you on board. And where are you sitting now as we speak? Our audience is always curious where people are.
I'm sitting in my studio on the corner in the mid-market district of San Francisco.
And as I've done a little bit of digging on you and trying to understand your past or your career, it sounds like you grew up in the Bay Area. Is that right?
I was born in the Bay Area. My first 4 years were here, but then I actually grew up down in LA.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
My stomping grounds. I've already introduced your organization. What are you working on this week or today or this week?
What aren't we working on? Yeah, we have a lot going on right now. So we are working on a new piece of music with a really outstanding young artist named Rain Stern. She's based in LA, and we're working on a piece with her on climate solutions. We hope to be able to finish the work up on that piece in the summer. We have a visual designer in Paris, Rain's in LA. We have scientists spread around, and so we've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings and a couple in-person meetings now too. So we hope to finish that in the summer, and then we're looking for a premiere in the fall. We're still sort of now starting to shop around for opportunities to premiere that piece. And then we also have our Be Cool campaign, which is a campaign centered around youth, young people. We're working together with an organization called Music Declares Emergency on that campaign. The most exciting thing that's this week on that campaign is that we are just about to install some solar panels at a school in Nigeria. As part of the campaign, we actually have a person in Nigeria who's been going around to schools to recruit young people to sing on our launch video. And in that process, he discovered that a lot of those schools have zero electricity, which means not only they can't see very well inside the classrooms, but most importantly, they can't keep cool. And so we're going to be installing a demonstration project. We raised some money, and they'll have light and cooling in about 3 months.
Gosh, how fantastic! Okay, we got to unpack it. We got to unpack a few of these points, but before we do, I want to hear a little bit about how this came about. I love your notion that music is uniquely powerful. It's a universal language. You're moving hearts and minds to rapid action. You started this organization back in 2017, I believe. How did this come about?
Actually, it was 2014, and it came about really through a deep frustration that I had, realizing that it was 2014, and that we were still, too many people were still very confused about climate as an issue. I don't want to date myself, but I had my first introduction to climate in 1988 when I was in grad school the first time. And, the reality is we've known about this problem. The science has been really pretty clear since the 1980s. We've learned a lot since the 1980s, but even in the 1980s, we knew enough that this was going to be a problem. And it was just a frustration that all those years had passed, and we still, as a society, had not been able to really confront this issue and work to solve it. And so I had just finished a second graduate degree in environmental management with a focus on environmental sciences. And I'm also a studio artist. I've been a studio artist for quite a while. This is my studio here I'm in. And I just wanted to do something that would merge those two sides of my brain. And the story actually is that I was sitting in my studio. I was thinking initially of making a kinetic sculpture that would mimic the functioning of the carbon cycle. But I was sitting in my workbench here, and I was banging a metal rod against my desk, thinking about how I might do that. And that banging of the metal rod suggested a rhythm, and the rhythm suggested music, and then it went from there.
Oh, that's great. And I apologize for the wrong start date. I guess I watched one of your videos that was 12 years from 2017 to
yeah. And
is that right?
I shifted. I had a previous career And so in 2014, I started the project, nights, weekends, all my vacation time, holidays. And then in 2017, I left that career to focus full time on climate music.
Right. And I've seen some of your art. You're a fantastic artist. Are you a musician also?
I'll only admit to being a lifelong student of music. I know that there's a huge gulf between a competent amateur and a true professional. So I would never say I'm a guitarist or I'm a pianist, but I'm a student of the guitar and I'm a student of piano as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we go back to 2014. You've got this notion, this great notion, this frustration that I share too, by the way. How did you start out?
Well, it was actually quite risky. I just had this notion that this could be possible. So I went ahead and created a little model in GarageBand. So I created a very simple algorithm and then tried to collide it with some music. It was America the Beautiful, actually. And basically what happened is America the Beautiful, was 1,000 years of climate temperature data. What would happen is that the music would sound first fine. And as the temperature began to rise, America the Beautiful would just fall apart, essentially. So I actually showed that model to a colleague of mine, and she was quite impressed. And so that gave me enough, I think, confidence to really try to see if we could make it work in the real world. And so I researched a number of composers, some scientists. I invited a lot of people. One composer finally said yes. And the first scientist I reached out to said yes immediately. And so I pulled, back then we called it a charrette. Today we'd probably call it a hack day. So in my studio, we basically invited the scientist to come. He brought his colleague. And then the musician brought some music, the composer brought some musicians, the scientist brought some data. I brought some food. And then we said at 9:00 in the morning, we said, okay, the food is here. The restrooms are down the hall. You guys are going to work for the next 8 hours. And at 5 p.m., a test audience will come in and you'll perform whatever you can do in the next 8 hours. And it was a risk because they had never met, and we had no idea whether their personalities would align, or whether they'd be able to even speak the same language. It was a complete risk. It was a complete shot in the dark. And luckily, they just immediately merged like a team that had been working together for years, and they worked like fiends. Didn't even take any breaks. And at 5 p.m., we had 30 people come to the studio. And they performed a 20-minute piece, and after that 20-minute piece, there were tears in the audience. And then we knew we had something at that point.
You knew you had something. Yeah, I was impressed by your. That's a great story, and I was impressed by your website. That I know I'm gonna do a hatchet job on this, but you basically got your technical specialists, you got your science advisors, and then you've got your musicians, and then you've got your operations people, the people that are putting together videos, and then you've got you and Fran, your other producer, that are pulling this all together. Is that that's the notion of that charrette, right? That you're bringing together these different disciplines to create something really new and exciting.
That's right. And since then, we pulled in public policy people, obviously technology people. We have videographers, visual designers working with us. It's a whole really cross disciplinary collaborative.
And so, are these musicians that you've been working with over the years? They're all obviously they're great artists, and they're all well intentioned. But I gather that they really need the synthesis of disciplines. They need the technical chops in order to be able to really communicate effectively.
Yeah, the musicians need to be really good, and we like to say that music is a universal language, but with many dialects. And so we really consciously try to reach out to recording artists across many genres of music. Not any one of our pieces is the same genre of music. And so, they need to be really top, and they also need to have some kind of a following. Now, as we work, we get a lot of interest, but we really need to work with musicians at this point that have an audience to speak to. And then the thing is that we pair them with the science team. And the science team, has in mind a narrative of an aspect of the climate emergency that they believe the public really needs to understand, that maybe is not being communicated effectively via traditional means. There are a lot of people who, for example, would not necessarily want to go to a scientific lecture, or who would not necessarily, watch a report or read a report, but who would go to a concert as an entry point. So what we're doing is we're offering an easy entry point to what's otherwise a very complex and daunting subject. And then the scientists really work with the recording artist or the composer over months to, number one, provide really a little briefing, a sort of a short-term course, put it that way, on the science, but for a layperson. And then they work after that. They work through ways to express the critical insights, either directly through the music, the lyrics, or also there's always a visual element as well. And then the visual element is another opportunity where the science can be reinforced. But let me also say that what we're doing here is really art. We're not doing science. And so it's really important that the music resonates as music and not just as a translation of data into sound. So for that reason, we say that our music is science informed and not data driven, because the scientists really provide that broader context to help the recording artists understand the implications of the data in the real world. And so that's a really important part, is that active exchange and collaboration, very active collaboration between the science team and the recording artist. That really is what I think makes us a little unique.
And how bounded are you? I know your focus is climate change. Like this podcast, our focus is sustainability, which gets pretty broad. I mean, we go off into energy issues and food issues and water issues and other resources. How do you keep that focus on climate change? I mean, there's so many elements of climate change.
Well, that's it. There's so many elements of climate change. So as I mentioned, each of our pieces really explores a different aspect of the climate emergency. Right now we have 6 pieces. Our first piece looked at the physical science. The second piece looked at what are the human drivers, of the crisis. The third piece looked at sea level rise and climate. The fourth piece looked at solutions. The fifth piece looked at the intersection or the interrelationship between climate, biodiversity, and the preservation of natural landscapes. The sixth piece, which was a violin concerto, looked at sort of the vicious circles that have brought us to the edge of the climate abyss, and then the virtuous circles that could pull us back from the edge of the abyss, looking at solutions. And now our seventh piece that we're working on with Rain looks at climate solutions.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say pieces, help me out, because these are sort of different aspects of your work. They're not. I mean, you've had lots and lots of compositions and lots of different artists. Well,
we're working on our 7th composition. And then we have smaller things we've done that are calls to action, which are also music, but are not directly science informed. But the core work that's science informed, right now we have 6 pieces that we're performing actively and a 7th one that's coming that will be ready this summer.
And when you say they're performing actively, what does that mean? They're in concerts, or you're recording them? Both?
No, we're concerts, online and online events principally, and then we also message about them on our social media. We have other ways for people to connect with them on our website, etc. But principally concerts. So we are often invited by third parties to come provide content at events. We were recently, for example, in Florida, where we were invited to perform live our very first piece, which was really a great experience. It was a part of the country we hadn't been to yet, so that was a very gratifying experience.
And how long are these pieces typically? I know it must vary.
They vary. They vary from the shortest one is 10 minutes and the longest one is half an hour. And typically each of our performances have 3 parts to them. So we always want to introduce our pieces through a little context setting statement by one of our scientists. In other words, I'm a climate scientist. Why am I introducing a concert? Why are we here tonight? And then we do the performance. And then there's always an opportunity for the public to engage with the scientists and also with our performers, and often with third-party climate action people in an after concert, post-concert sort of expression session. And we find that that's actually often the most a rewarding part of the evening, because there's an emotional, the music elicits an emotional response. And what we find is that people really want to not just go home, but they want to talk about what they had just experienced. And I should really emphasize here that our purpose is not just to put on interesting concerts. Our purpose is to educate people about the climate emergency and then provide pathways to taking the next step on climate action. So it's that climate action piece of it that really is why we exist. The music is a great convener. It helps to bring people together in community. And then we have an opportunity, because there's an emotional response, we have an opportunity then to talk about solutions and then also resources that people can take. Because I think what often we found in the past is that many people are aware of the climate emergency at this point. I think it's even a majority of the population in the United States. But time and time again, we find people who are just still confused about the urgency of it and also about what can be done about it, or even if anything can be done about it. And I think it's that opportunity to talk about solutions, talk about things that are at hand where we can actually limit warming is really important.
And this is a sort of a minor point, but are all your climate experts, are they volunteering their time for this activity, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's been a really interesting aspect of our work. We have now, Fran and I are the two day-to-day people. Fran is the other executive producer, Fran Schulberg. And then we have about 2 or 3 people around us who are just very, very part-time staff to help us with the day-to-day operations. Overall, there were about 40 people across the arts, sciences, technology, and public policy, and almost everyone else is volunteering their time full-time. And also Fran and I volunteer our time as well. And what we found is that group has been relatively stable, actually remarkably stable over now 10 years. And the scientists we find are very interested in finding new ways to communicate their work outside of the echo chamber of the peer-reviewed journal world. And then what we also find is that a lot of recording artists actually are looking for a way to use their talents and their platforms to be able to speak out on this issue. And so it's a really perfect marriage.
I remember some years ago, I was in the anti-nuclear movement big time years ago. And what was it? Muse, the Musicians United for Safe Energy. And I think just what you said, they're all looking for a way of taking their talent and applying it to the crisis at hand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so how does it work? I saw on your website that you'll work with artists on new work, on new music, and then also existing pieces, right?
Yeah. So there are 2 approaches you can take. One is an approach we call the deconstructive approach, and one is an approach we call the constructive approach. The deconstructive approach is exactly what I did with America the Beautiful, is where you take a piece of music and then you essentially collide it with the reality of whatever climate data is underlying the story we want to tell, and see what happens to the music, essentially. And in the case, where you're dealing with CO, carbon emissions and temperature, it's unfortunate that the music very quickly becomes shredded. And our first piece, Climate, used that approach as well. The other approach is constructive, where we just actually start with a brand new piece of music and work with the scientists to figure out what the story is, what the narrative is we want to tell, and what we want to communicate, and then how the music and the science can come together and be an integrated whole.
Yeah, it's so exciting what you're doing. You mentioned it a couple minutes ago, but there is a visual element also. And I saw, we were in Sherman Oaks, what was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I saw just sort of a sampling. You gave one of the violinist, I can't remember her name, but
that was Scarlett Rivera.
Yeah, it was really nice, and the visuals were very interesting. Can you talk about the visuals that you're putting together with this music and message?
Yeah, the visuals are intended to support the music. So unlike a film score, where the music really supports the visuals, it's the other way around here. The music comes first and the visual support, and help people really understand what's being communicated without being overly didactic. Essentially, we don't want to hit people over the head with the visuals. But that said, we also have an opportunity to really use them effectively in creative ways. And we're very lucky that we have a young Italian visual designer based in Paris named Angelo Ciaccio, who has done 4 of our pieces now, and he's really talented and he's really creative. And so he's very good at embedding the science in creative ways, not just charts and numbers, but using animations, whether in numbers or beneath the anime or behind the animations. And it's been really great actually to work with him. We think that the visuals really help convey the messages that we want to get out to the public.
Yeah, no, I thought so. Absolutely. Talk about "I Want to Be Cool." That was, I think you showed a video of that.
Yeah.
Was that a piece? Would you call that a piece?
No, that's a call to action. That's an anthem that is part of it's at the heart of a climate action campaign centered on youth that we're working together with an organization called Music Declares Emergency, which is headquartered in the UK. And that project got a start a couple of years ago. We did a songwriters workshop. We wanted to find a way to just get more music out there. So we invited some very established songwriters to come sit down with some climate scientists for a day's just discussion and sort of riffing off of ideas and getting inspired. And one of the songs that came off out of that day was a song called "I Want to Be Cool" by 2 award-winning singer-songwriters, Will Kimbrough and Brant Miller, both based in Nashville. The song is just very upbeat. It's very uplifting, very joyful. And we thought, well, you know what? Young people this is such a hard issue for young people.
Yeah,
it's so daunting. It's so scary. So since this song is such an upbeat song, why don't we make this song the center of a campaign to engage young people, and through young people, their parents and their families in climate action in a way that's very positive, very sort of reinforcing. And what's come out of that is a campaign called the Be Cool campaign. And we have, for the launch video, we recruited about 2,400 young people from 4 continents to sing on the video, on the launch video, which was done by an Emmy Award and multiple award-winning studio in LA called Imaginary Forces. And they did a great job, and it's a really uplifting video. It's now got 136,000 views, and that is, and it's growing pretty rapidly. And that now is the basis of our continuing to work with young people around the world, including in Nigeria, because we actually had a volunteer in Nigeria who went around to all 6 states in Nigeria to recruit singers. And what we found, he went to different schools, was that a lot of these schools don't have electricity.
Yeah.
And so that's bad enough for just trying to read in the classroom, but it's even worse in Nigeria, given climate change, keeping the classrooms cool. There's no way to keep the classrooms cool, and so kids really can't learn. And so we decided to do, through this campaign, to do a little GoFundMe. We were able to raise enough money to actually do a first demonstration project of putting solar on one of the schools called the Wisdom Academy in the Wari Delta. And that work on that solar array is going to start in a few weeks and should be up and running by the middle of the summer. And so we're hoping to actually use the campaign to connect kids, both in the United States and also starting with Nigeria to have the dialogues going back and forth about climate. But also, we just did a contest to do a cover version of the song. So we're getting a lot of traction. We were just down at EarthX Summit with the campaign in Dallas a few weeks ago. And so that's an aspect of our work that is not strictly the science-informed part of it, but is a way to really engage young people around music, and through music, climate.
That Nigerian project, boy, that sounds fantastic. It's I read somewhere now you've worked in about 30 different countries, or your works have gone out to about 30 countries. Is that right?
Yeah, we know we've reached audiences in 30 countries. We've done events in 10 countries. Our first international event was actually an online event in France, but then we did a live event with the World Bank in Mexico City back in 2018. We've worked with a lot of international organizations, including the European Union, the World Economic Forum, etc. The National Academy of Sciences and others. Lots of universities we've worked with as well around the world.
I was interested in the 2021 Concert for Global
Yeah.
Climate Action, and talk about that project.
Yeah, that was our biggest concert ever. Actually, until recently, we just had a one with a larger audience even. That one was really we met a very top level violinist in Europe named Yuri Rebic. He's based in Vienna, and he actually is also a climate activist. He's at the top of the classical music world. And we talked with him for a while, and we decided to try to do a joint concert where he would invite people to a venue in Vienna and do a climate action concert, and then we would do one at the same time in San Francisco, and then merge them online and have one integrated program with different types of music across the world, and then have people, what we call streaming partners, at universities and other organizations to gather people remotely to experience the stream, and then to have conversations about climate action after the concert. And it worked really well. We had a few technology glitches, but overall it worked very, very well. We had over 1,000 people from dozens of countries that were on that experienced that concert. And that actually became the basis of our newest big project, which is called the Echo Concert Series, where we'll be doing small, intimate live performances in LA and San Francisco, and then streaming them out to streaming partners at universities, congregations, community centers, museums around the country and North America, and then ask those streaming partners after the concerts to break away and have their own local conversations around climate action. And we'll be providing all sorts of resources to those organizations. And we know it works because in 2021, for that international concert, for example, Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, brought together a crowd, and I believe it was about 200 people that actually not only experienced the stream, but then broke off afterwards for a very engaging conversation around climate action. So that's what we're looking for in this concert series. Then the next event will be in October.
Boy, Stephan, you really got it. You really got it going. I can tell you have a lot of energy, and your wits to bring all these people together. A convener. Now, I always like to talk a little bit about what motivates people. And when I was looking at your bio and understanding a little bit more about you, I was really struck by your ocean rowing, which is something that I would love to hear you talk about. But I want to frame this up because, as I understand it, you've done thousands of miles of ocean rowing, and you've dealt with leaky boats, capsizing, narrow misses by ships. You've been lost in the fog. Where did this come about? How did you get into that?
Yeah, let me say that those thousands of miles of ocean rowing were actually all completed in about 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I haven't done that since I was 22. But I was all compressed into those years. And what happened was that my mom unfortunately had a medical emergency when I was 18, and was essentially very badly disabled, became very badly disabled. And I was just finishing high school, and my brother and I were looking for a way just to work off some steam and to work off stress. And so down in Southern California, at least back in those days, each beach city had lifeguards, and each city lifeguard group had a team of what they're called dories, ocean going dories, and they would do competitions along the coast every summer between lifeguards just to stay in shape. And the crowning event of that series is the row back from Catalina Island across the San Pedro Channel, which is 26 miles. And so my brother and I were not lifeguards. We were just trying to reduce my stress. And so we'd get up at 5:30 or 5 in the morning before going to university to row 5 miles or so out in the ocean. And we would just we just did it for fun. But then the summer came and the races started, and we thought, well, why don't we try to row back from Catalina? and we had no idea what we were doing, but we were in quite good shape by then because we've been doing it every morning. And we actually did pretty well that first year, which surprised us since we had a leaky, but we did actually have a leaky boat. Our boat was actually literally sinking as we were going before the start. And nevertheless, we managed to pull it off. And so over 3 years, we worked towards trying to win that race. And so in the course of doing so, we rode literally thousands of miles, often way out in the ocean off the coast of Southern California, just training, and be out there in the middle of the morning. And you see fishers out there thinking, what are you doing out here? So it was.
Well, yeah, the idea of a big ship coming along, steaming along, that scares me just thinking about it.
We had a couple of close calls, that's for sure. We were probably not. Yeah, we took probably a risk we shouldn't have taken.
Now, in 2024, you won the Eco 50. What is that? Is that through the Explorers Club? You won an award?
It's called the EC50. Yeah.
EC50. Sorry.
Yeah.
And what was it? What was that all about?
I had never heard of the Explorers Club, and it was totally unexpected. I just got an email, and the Explorers Club, it turns out, is a scientific association that is world renowned, and it turns out that many of my childhood heroes were members at one time or another of the Explorers Club. Thor Heyerdahl, people like that, from people in my age will know who he is, or was rather. And each year they select 50 people around the world who they think are doing interesting work. And I was very fortunate, and I was humbled to have been selected last year as one of the 50. So I was.
I could see why they chose you. I could see it. Well, congratulations on that.
Well, no, thank you. I was very, very humbled. It was quite an honor.
And congratulations on all your accomplishments. This ClimateMusic is a great organization, and what you're putting together is truly inspiring, and it will be changing so many minds. I know we have a lot to do, but boy, you've really made a huge contribution. So thank you for that.
No, I appreciate that. We like to say that our approach is not hearts and minds; it's hearts to minds. The idea being that through music, we can have an emotional response, and that we probably need to have an emotional response before we can actually really engage our minds to really see the problem as it is and to see it clearly. And that's one thing that we think music can help with. And so that's why we're doing this work.
Well, thanks so much for what you're doing, and thanks for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Ted, thank you so much, and thank you for your work too. I'm very inspired by what you do as well.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanigan's Ecologic. We'll see you next time.